Okay, well, I'm here to tell you my story. But before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about my background and how I came to get this handle, Renaissance Woman. And I was speaking at a conference many years ago, and the woman came to me, and that was introducing me. She came to me and she said, well, tell me a little bit about yourself. What do you do? And I said, well, you know, I'm kind of an ADD artist. I was born in a family of artisans. I'm a fourth-generation blacksmith. And my mom and dad had a rock and lapidary store when I was growing up. So I learned to make things from a very early age. In fact, my dad tells a story of me making earrings when I was 3. I'm not sure how that's possible, but it's his story. And I was silversmithing at age 12, and I painted the signs on his stock car in high school, and well, it really didn't change much after I left school. I told her I had been a potter, and of course a blacksmith, and a painter, and an illustrator, and I worked with glass and metals. I make jewelry and wall sculpture, and I hold healing retreats, and she said, well, hang on a second. She said, you're not an ADD artist. You're a Renaissance woman. And I looked at her and I thought, wow, what an incredibly positive perspective shift. And I vowed then that I would somehow come to learn to embrace that handle. So here I am. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the Renaissance in a second, but I want to tell you now the rest of my story. So it was about 2010, and my family and I, my husband and 2 boys, were living in the Calgary area, but we'd made the decision that we wanted to move to the island. So that meant that he was going to move ahead of me to take a new job, and he left me behind with 2 boys, 2 dogs, a house I had to keep in home shape, and a career of my own that I had to wind up, and to say that I got overwhelmed is an understatement. So that ended up with me in the hospital the night before I was supposed to leave to come to the island to look for a new home. They kept me in the hospital overnight for observation, thinking that maybe I'd had a heart attack. And I was very lucky to find out it wasn't a heart attack, it was only a panic attack. Something like, now. When they realized it was only a panic attack, they released me in the morning, and I hit the ground running, away I went. So we got the family moved, and we settled in the fall. And then I jumped in with both feet. I mean, I decided at that time I was going to become an artist for the first time, full-time. And so I did everything that you would expect. I started building a body of work. I went to markets and shows. I looked for retailers that would carry my work, that were a good fit. I offered courses. I did all of the things that I thought I should do. But it wasn't happening fast enough. I mean, I was getting really antsy and anxious and stressed out about the whole thing. And I ended up in the hospital yet again. This time a little more serious. A routine screen diagnosed me with early stages of colon cancer. It required surgery, but luckily surgery was the only intervention I required, so I got off easy, yet again. And as soon as I was sufficiently healed, don't you know it, I hit the ground running yet again. I got busy. I was so determined to make this career work that I just thought, I just need to work harder, and I need to do the right things. But I was really overwhelmed and getting depressed. And at about the same time, one of my sons also suffered a couple of traumatic events of his own, and he slipped into a depression that got really bad really fast. And he was engaging in self-harm and threatening suicide on almost a weekly basis. My husband and I were just beside ourselves and so sick with worry, trying to figure out how in the world can we support him. And by 2015, I just thought my life was a train wreck. I was still really struggling. He was struggling. My health I had virtually ignored, and I found myself curled up in my studio in a chair, absolutely sobbing. And I thought, I can't do this. I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't any fun. I'm just throwing in the towel. That's it. I've had it. And when the tears cleared, I realized, I don't really have that option. I'm not willing to take it. I had 2 children who loved me and needed me. I had a husband who also loved me, and friends and family that cared about me. I couldn't create trauma for them just to alleviate my own suffering. So I had to find another way. Coincidentally, I actually had a doctor's appointment the very next morning, and she said, yeah, you're right, you can't do this anymore. I'm actually going to put you on meds because your blood pressure is absolutely through the roof. And I begged her, I said, no, just give me a little time. I know I can make some changes. And she agreed. She gave me a month. So I went home and I started a detox. I thought, that's where I have to start. And I got 2 weeks in, and I thought, wow, I can't believe how good I feel. I can actually feel my body for the first time in a really long time. And it got me thinking, I thought, what else could I be doing that would change the way I felt? So I started then what I now refer to as the vitality experiment. Started horsing around with different ways of eating, different ways of thinking and being, different healing modalities and practices, anything designed to help me feel better. And well, it's now, this weekend, is the 1-year anniversary of that doctor's visit. I'm over 30 pounds lighter. My blood pressure has normalized. I've adopted a mostly vegan-ish nutrition plan, and I have come to absolutely adore meditation and yoga. They sustain me for sure. So, what did I learn about this that I can share with you that I think is important to making this kind of a shift? So the first one, and they come in the guise of some of my dad's one-liner wisdom. So I also have a very interesting father who shares his wisdom in a neat way. So here's the first one. Jump in and dig your way out. This simply means decide. That's all you have to decide, to take the first step. Just the first step. We often get really hung up because we haven't got the whole plan worked out. We haven't figured it all out, so we're afraid to start. And really, we don't have to do any of that because it all changes in the mix anyway once you get going. So just decide to take the first step. So then you need curiosity, a willingness to try. See what happens. Experiment, fall down, stumble a little bit, make a few mistakes. Oh, and if you make a mistake, there's a perceived failure of some sort. My dad would tell you there's only one thing you have to say to yourself, and that's this. Well, now I know about that. Kind of takes the sting out of failure. Secondly, tune your instrument. Right? This vessel that we walk through the world in is extraordinary. I mean, for us women who have had children, we know it's extraordinary. We can grow a human being. This is wild to me. But we're not terribly good at paying attention to it. Right? It gives us feedback all the time, and sometimes it's really subtle. I mean, in my case, it was a 2x4 over my head, and I still didn't listen. So really, we just need to find ways of tuning in, body, mind, and soul. So for my body, I just cleaned it out. The detox gave me the ability to feel my physical body in a way that I'd not felt it in a very long time, maybe ever. Clean, find the food that makes you feel good, that sits in your belly and makes you feel light and energetic, not like a stone. Find movement, physical activities that you enjoy. For mind, become a watcher of thoughts and emotions, right? The mind is going all the time. It's a monkey mind. And it's either serving us or it's bringing us down. So getting used to working with the mind always. The brain works on patterns. So if we're trying to eliminate old habits that don't serve us anymore, you actually need to create a new one. So I think this is one of the reasons that detox helped so much, because it was 28 days of a new rhythm that got my brain kind of clicking with it. I did the same with yoga. I found a 30-day yoga camp online. And it's this new rhythm and repetition that allowed me to work with my brain that made change happen. Any practice that's going to allow you more self-awareness really is going to be something that will help. Thirdly, never walk alone. Isolation is absolutely debilitating. I know it. I've lived it. I'm sure you're aware of the responses, typical responses to stress, right? We fight, flight, or freeze. But there's actually a fourth response that's unique to women, and that is tend and befriend. So we have a tendency to gather with one another when we're going through difficult things and to support and nurture each other. It is just innate in who we are. And I gotta tell you, it was the phone calls to my girlfriends that when I was in my darkest moments and couldn't see clearly, what I couldn't see, they could. And when I needed support and understanding, they were there for me. When I needed an ass kicking, they were there for me too. They're that kind of girlfriends. It's really what PowHERhouse is all about. It's about bringing women together to support and collaborate with one another. It is our way of being. Okay, so why is this all important? Why would I bother to share this with you at all? Let me go back to this idea of the Renaissance. The Renaissance means rebirth. It's a renewal or a revival of life. It was a time in history that was full of discovery and learning. It was a time of growth and real transformation. It's what moved us from the Middle Ages to the modern age. And I absolutely believe we are at a time in history right now where we need the same kind of thing, a new renaissance. I mean, you only have to listen to the media for a matter of 5 minutes to know we're in some deep, crazy chaos right now. I mean, whether it's politics and government or the health of our planet or our own health and well-being or corruption or in business, there is significant change required of some sort. I believe that the shift that needs to take place is one that promotes healing and nurturing, one that is more humanistic and more compassionate in orientation. Really, it's a rising of the feminine principle to more nature-based and an interconnected way of leading and working and being. I know you're familiar with the Dalai Lama quote that says, "The world will be saved by the Western woman." I absolutely believe him. Here's another quote that I share that says the same, that would lead me to believe the same thing, and it's Charles Darwin. He said, "When the human species has finally learned to harness emotion, we will be ready to take the next evolutionary leap." I see women doing that. It's the women who are in the counselor's office. It's the ones there in the healing retreats, in the yoga studios. We're doing our healing work. When we heal ourselves, we don't just heal ourselves. We heal our families, our communities, the places that we work. I know that when we do this healing work and when women take more positions of leadership, that this healing will extend to the whole planet. And I'm excited about that. That's the kind of shift that I want to be a catalyst of. And this leads me to my ask. I know you're dying for me to get there, aren't you? It's just hovering. Okay, my ask is that I have 2 projects that I'm working on currently. And the one is I created a large painting called Love Wins. And this is a small portion of it that is on a pillow. But I want to bring this design to market in a whole new way. And that's a line of yoga wear and accessories to extend this idea of living in love. And so maybe it's an introduction to existing brands like Lululemon or Karma Athletic, or maybe it's working with an existing designer, or maybe it's a connection with a licensing agent. I'm open to possibilities. The second is this. I have a YouTube channel about to launch in the winter called Inspire You, where I continue to share this kind of stuff, what I'm experimenting with, what's working, not working, and healing. My hope is you will jump in with me, and together we'll dig our way out. Thank you for being part of a new renaissance.